Secretary Duque, you're recognized.
Senate Committee of the Whole, magandang umaga po. Your Honors, PhilHealth is a program very close to my heart because its precursor, the Medicare, was the brainchild of my late father, former Secretary of Health Francisco Kimson Duque. Consequently, my commitment to safeguarding the sustainability of the fund is very personal. And I would like to state for the record that I am for zero tolerance on fraud and corruption. In fact, in my first year as PhilHealth PCEO in 2001, I instigated the Memorandum of Agreement with the NBI for the investigation of cases in aid of fraud prevention. As chairman of PhilHealth in 2005 to 2009, the board created a task force, Kisap to scrutinize or verify claims on cataract-related cases and to conduct investigations where alarming trends on claims utilizations were noted. The board at that time also partnered with the Philippine Academy of Ophthalmology to help curb fraudulent cataract claims, and this led to the filing of at least 3,000 cases against erring providers. When I returned as chairman of the board in November 2017, I discovered that these cases were archived for failure to serve legal processes to the eye centers, so I directed management to exert every effort to reinstate those cases and pursue them vigorously. In my current stint as chairman of the PhilHealth Board, we approved the recommendations of the Health Insurance Data Analytics Committee, or HEDAC, to resolve significant weaknesses in PhilHealth's operations based on data-driven reports of outliers in the benefit payments that may have resulted in the abuse and undue depletion of the National Health Insurance Fund. This data analytics has resulted in what we refer today as the MIDAS report. MIDAS being Machine Learning Integrated Data Analytics System, which report has since been referred to the Office of the President, the DOJ, the Ombudsman, for appropriate investigation of potentially fraudulent claims and possible complicity of PhilHealth personnel in such fraud. The board likewise approved additional manpower to render electronic adjudication and PNF evaluation and medical prepayment review using the Claim Form 4 as a fraud deterring tool, as well as the creation of plantilla lawyer positions in support of our anti-fraud measures. Now, please allow me to address the three resolutions before the Committee of the Whole. First, on resolution number 461 regarding the alleged failure of PhilHealth to release benefit payments to its accredited hospitals that led to the closure, I would like to confer with the Honorable Senator De Lima on the so-called 300 hospitals on the verge of closure, because this is not the data that we have. Our data shows that benefit payments were regularly and systematically released to those with complete requirement is submitted. These hospitals, which Senator De Lima are referring to, are among those whose claims were long denied for their failure to submit the necessary requirements or submitted beyond the 60-day period provided for in the PhilHealth Charter, Republic Act 7875 as amended. If the Senate will recall, a certain group of healthcare facilities came before this body last year with the claim that they have not been paid certain claims amounting to a total of 2.5 billion pesos. The board specifically instructed management to review those claims, and it was established that these denied claims lacked the necessary paperwork. We will coordinate with the Office of Senator De Lima so that we can validate further the matter. It is assured that all good claims will be paid. Our records show that PhilHealth, based on payment dates of claims per year, has paid a total of 114.6 billion to its accredited hospitals in 2018 and 97.4 billion in 2019. This year, PhilHealth has so far disbursed more than 43 billion, of which 24.5 billion or 56.8% were paid to private hospitals. Second, on resolution number 474, alleging widespread corruption as claimed by an anti-fraud officer, three issues were raised. The 154 billion over the years of various forms of fraud and 102 billion due to overpayment. I have clarified this before the Blue Ribbon Committee last year, but I will repeat it to set the record straight. There is no such thing as a 154 billion loss. In fact, I am presenting to you this June 10, 2020 letter from COA Chairman Aguinaldo confirming that there is no such finding in the published COA annual audit reports. On the matter of the IT budget, I would like to make it clear that there has been no release of any funding on this project since everything is still at the proposal stage. This is precisely because we need a more complete analysis on both hardware and software infrastructure needed by PhilHealth. On January 30, 2020, while the board approved the 2020 corporate operating budget, it deferred action on the budget proposal of the IT sector with a directive to CIO SVP Jovita Aragona to submit a revised work plan within a week. In fact, in fact, the board directed management to work closely with the DOH health facilities and infrastructure team to ensure alignment of efforts, especially in enhancing the supply side IT capacity and other IT reforms in the realm of universal health care. The board also discussed hiring an external IT expert to assist the IT sector in the budget proposal and its projects. When I presided over the board last June 2, 2020, the concerns raised by the board member Kabading following discrepancies in the Internal Audit Group or IAG report and the IT 2020 budget proposal were discussed. I personally recommended a complete overhaul of the information system strategic plan and expressed my support for anything that will put PhilHealth back on track with its IT roadmap. Likewise, as chairman, I supported the recommendation that the audit findings be investigated by a fact-finding committee. And this was echoed by other board members, and it was agreed that a fact-finding committee be created. To date, the board has yet to decide on how to implement this much-needed IT project because we need to assure that any release of government money for this will be scrutinized in detail. We await the investigation report from the fact-finding committee and recommendations from technology experts, including the DICT. Lastly, on resolution number 475, on alleged rampant corruption, incompetence, and inefficiency, 15 issues were raised here. Please allow me to respond to the major ones. On the release of the IRM, or Interim Reimbursement Mechanism, the IRM is a special privilege allocated to healthcare institutions in areas directly affected by fortuitous events and emergencies, as long as the HCIs have clear and apparent intent to continuously operate and or rebuild in order to provide continuous healthcare services to adversely affected Filipinos. It's like pre-positioning funds in target areas so that reimbursement of claims is easier for HCIs during the pandemic when funds from the national office can be difficult to access. I must clarify that IRM is not specific only to the COVID-19 pandemic, as it is based on the provisions of the National Health Insurance Act and the UHC Act that gives PhilHealth the flexibility to implement financing mechanisms to ensure provisions of benefits for Filipinos. This scheme has been in place for many years and was relied upon during the Ondoy calamity, Yolanda, and even the Marawi siege. Calamity and the state of public health emergency due to COVID-19 pandemic compelled PhilHealth to make the IRM available for all HCIs consistent with the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act. We are in a war against an invisible enemy. And COVID patients are not the only casualties in this war. IRM
Secretary Duque, if you can hear us, please check your connection. All right, are you back? Unmute, please unmute your computer. Go. Continue.
on the reverse, thank you, sir. On the reversal of final and executory judgments of the courts on the suspension orders imposed upon erring and fraudulent HCIs, first, before it made the decision to compromise on the manner by which the judgment are to be serviced. The said decisions were made upon the advice of our legal on the latest jurisprudence.
Secretary Duque, you have a very poor connection. Please wind up or wrap up.
Yes, sir. I must clarify, thank you, Mr. Senate President. I must clarify that IRM is not specific only to COVID-19 pandemic. as it is based on the provisions of the National Health Insurance Act and the UHC Act that gives PhilHealth the flexibility to implement financing mechanisms to ensure provision of benefits for Filipinos. This scheme has been in place for many years and was relied upon during the Ondoy calamity, Yolanda, and even the Marawi siege. On January 30, 2020, the board allocated IRM for the immediate payment of 50% of all pending good claims in the province of Batangas in response to the Taal volcano eruption. Naturally, the national state of calamity and the state of public health emergency due to COVID-19 pandemic compelled PhilHealth to make the IRM available for HCIs, consistent with the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act. We are in a war against an invisible enemy, and COVID patients are not the only casualties in this war. IRM funds are not exclusive to hospitals catering to COVID-19 patients. It is for all HCIs catering for all patients during this pandemic. It provides prepayment for hospitals to address the increased burden to them and cushion the impact of the pandemic to their capacity to ensure continuous provision of care for Filipinos. The scope of IRM releases cover all HCIs given the nationwide state of public health emergency brought by the pandemic. 17% or 711 out of the 4105 of HCIs received the IRM and 14.9 billion out of 27 billion was released. On the allegations of palakasan system in the release of the IRM, we assure you there is none. And at the time this package was introduced, there were only 6 laboratory testing facilities and 4 RT-PCR test kits. When revised, there were 34 laboratory testing facilities as of May 24 and 41 RT-PCR test kits approved by the FDA as of May 19, hence the need to recalibrate. We continue to conduct studies on the testing packages as we ramp up our testing capacity and widen the catchment areas of our laboratories nationwide so that PhilHealth can leverage on these efficiencies in its costing. On the reversal of final and executory judgments of the courts on the suspension orders imposed upon erring and fraudulent HCIs. As reported to the Blue Ribbon Committee and Committee on Health and Demography last year, the board considered many factors before it made the decision to compromise on the manner by which the judgments are to be serviced. The said decisions were made upon the advice of our legal on the latest jurisprudence and applicable laws, including the exceptions on the execution of final and executory decisions to serve substantial justice and equity, such as providing immediate healthcare services by imposing the maximum penalty in lieu of suspending a hospital's operations. Upon my instructions, the corporate secretary reported to the appellate courts concerned on the board's decision on the best means to execute the judgment. Mr. Senate President, I respect the Senate Committee of the Whole's unflinching fight against corruption. In the same way, I remain unflinching in my battles, not only in the fight to protect my character as a public servant, but also in the fight to implement President Rodrigo Roa Duterte's noble vision for genuine universal access to healthcare for all Filipinos and ensure we come out of the pandemic healthy as a nation. I am one with you in the endeavor to ensure accountability of public officers and uphold public office as a public trust. Thank you very much, Mr. Senate President. Maraming salamat po.